Bob is back.
What up, Johnny?
How are you, Bob?
Good. All Bobs.
And Bob. Both Bobs.
Bob and Bob.
Gina's back. How are you, Gina?
Hey, how are
and
you?
Corinne and Barry. Good to see y'all.
Morning.
How are you? Bob just putting the collection back.
Yeah, I thought maybe he was going to play for us this morning.
Doing some
Right.
warm-ups while we're waiting on you guys. So.
Who loves you? Appreciate it. Let's see. I might start sharing the screen here in just a second. So much to do, y'all. So little time. This is a
Early in
big
the chocolate
undertaking.
factory.
That's right.
You know, John, I work out on Friday mornings and I wear my workout clothes. Maybe I need to get some glamour shot and post it up there instead of having my cameras live.
Maybe. Maybe.
Is the theory that that's going to help?
Well, I'm embarrassed with all those guitars that are behind you. I mean,
Right?
Yeah, I'm embarrassed.
You got scenery, man. I got no scenery. Shoot. All right, I'm going to share my desktop as we start to go through this, and we'll reintroduce myself. For those of you who are new, y'all can see that okay? Let me know if I need to zoom up. There you go, Digital Dave. You got some background noise going on.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate everybody showing up today. This is great. We got a lot of new people. Look, just so you know how we roll over here, I like it if you're able to turn your camera on, and feel free, unless you got monstrous background noise, to just unmute, because as I'm sharing the screen and stuff, I'm not really paying attention to the chat box. Kelly and Faith usually will do that and call my attention to stuff, but sometimes I can't see it. So it's easier if I can see you guys waving or just talking. If you got a question, just ask, and that way we can keep it rolling and we will get through it, and everybody will get what they need out of today's presentation. And
John, everybody knows you got 100 windows open. That's why you can't see anything. So.
you have no idea. I
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Yeah, you do. Well, I had to reboot with 5 minutes to go because I was like, okay, my processor is just screaming in pain over here. So I rebooted it just to be safe for this. But yeah, I closed out 9 Chrome sessions, and each one had at least 20 tabs open, and my processor said, just quit already. So anyway, off we go. Okay, so I am John Munsell. I'm the CEO of a company called Bazooka. And the fast story is we're about 25 years old. And last year I sold off the agency portion of the business to get into marketing, coaching, and consulting with a specific bend on artificial intelligence. And so today what I wanted to do was show you guys how we go about doing a competitive analysis using this structured prompting system. The guys who have been here on that, what the structure looks like. For the new people, this might be completely new for you. It's a different style of prompting, but it allows you to do what I call scalable prompting. So that way, when you take on some new project, you just replace some variables and it's a whole lot faster. Out of curiosity, how many people are agencies or marketing consultants or coaches or CMOs or fractional CMOs? I know Corinne is. Anybody else? Feel free to just throw yes in the chat as I see it scrolling by. That would be great. Okay, and how many of you are in marketing for your company? And you can just say company or whatever it is. I'm trying to get a grip on what the background of everybody is. So, all right, cool. Alexandra, I know that. What about you? That's great. Okay, so this could be used either way. So if you're an agency, or if you're an SEO consultant, or if you're doing marketing for your company like Dax is, and Amy, Bob, of course, so this will apply to you. And the way I like to look at it is, I want to know, if I'm just running my company and I have another agency or a web developer out there who's built my website, or I'm paying somebody to do SEO, I want to know I need to improve. I want to know what my competitors are up to, right? And I want to know if my company has done their job. And as a now a marketing consultant, Alessia, I might have to get you to mute. There we go. Thanks. I'm working with a couple of clients right now, and I'm looking at the work that's been done for them. And I'm like, man, whoever did this was not really well informed. If you go through the steps here, however complicated they may be, you will be extremely well informed. And I'm going to go about it just using AI, but if you're more skilled at it, you'll be able to pick out where the AI needs a little bit of help, but you can certainly just use it straight out of the box almost with AI using specific plugins. Now, I kind of prefer ChatGPT, and there are a few reasons for that. If you've ever used any other AI tools, you know that they kind of have a tendency to train their AI and make you work within some confines. And ChatGPT seems to be a little bit more open so that you can do your own specific training on it. Yeah, Tracy, you do need to be cognizant of bias, which is another reason why I kind of like ChatGPT, because, I'm trying to work with it and help it kind of overcome some of those. I have noticed that certain tools are really biased. I think I was telling the story the other day, and for those of you who are in John Benson's mastermind, you may even recall him talking about it. He was trying to write a VSL for a weight loss product, and the tool he was using with basically came back and said, you can't say that. As if he were trying to fat shame somebody. And it was like, no, I'm trying to write about a weight loss product, but it literally kept him in a box and wouldn't do it. Tracy, tell me why Midjourney is very biased. I agree with you, but I'm interested what your angle is on that.
So I actually wrote an article about this on LinkedIn quite a while ago. I did a 90-day test with Midjourney. Mm-hmm. And if you're not specific in your prompts to say diversity or, anything about diversity, if you just say, for instance, show me an image of business people, like I did one for an SDR team with like money raining, right? And when I talked about that originally, like business people, they all came back white older men, 100% white older men. If I say CMO, so anything in the executive, white old men. So you have to be very specific in your prompts to showcase diversity. It was very hard to get a woman. Yeah. Even a woman of color. It was very difficult. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, there's lots of examples of that in a lot of areas. For instance, I noticed that a high percentage of the time, I forgot which tool it was. We were talking about it, I think, last week, but a high percentage of the time when I tell it to give me a girl sitting at a computer, it's someone of Asian descent, which was really kind of interesting. I have to now get really specific as to what kind of person there is. The same holds true for copy because, as somebody who's really kind of been schooled on direct response style copywriting, I can tell you that 90% of what you see out there is wrong. And you have to think, if that's the population of copy that all these AI tools have been consuming, then the stuff they output is going to be wrong 90% of the time, right? So you have to, if you don't know what good looks like, you're not going to get it out of AI. So, because you're going to have to train it. Right. If you're looking for a specific style of copy, you have to know like if you're trying to do conversions, it's going to try to sound like a 70s infomercial. And it drives me crazy. Right. So I have to be really careful with that. So anyway, as we get into this, I want to just kind of share with you a couple of things. First of all, if you want access to the replays, this is the URL that you would go to. I'll just copy and I'll paste it in here. And when you access the replays, you'll also get access to the CXO Roundtable community that we just launched last week. So don't be alarmed if you don't see any conversation going on in there, because we haven't had a chance to really start the conversations going. I will also, at some point, I have to figure out how to do it this weekend, is I will give you guys access to the prompt database. Okay. So we'll show you how we're going to do this. So you could, if you want to take screenshots of what we're going to do here, you're welcome to. But if you get into the Roundtable community, I'll show you how you can gain access to a lot of the stuff that we go over here. Okay. This one is a beast today. So just fair warning. Okay. There's a process to this. All right. And the first thing that we want to understand, who is our target persona, right? Who are we really trying to reach? You know, if you're B2B, you need to understand what your ideal person is. If you're B2C, you need to understand that. So at a minimum, we have to understand what their pains, problems, frustrations are, what their ideal outcome is, a lot of details like that. But we also want to know where we're trying to target them inside of the buyer's journey. And this comes out of one of the courses that I'd have, but I'm going to speed through this, but most people are aware of the awareness, interest, consideration, decision, post-purchase, and repurchase part of the buyer's journey. But it's also broken down as completely unaware, where they have no idea that they even have a problem, to, oh, now they realize they have a problem, to, now I know there's actually a solution to the problem. And now I know which specific products solve my problem. And now they're really aware of your own brand because they've either engaged with you through the sales process or they've bought from you. Make sense? So I don't know whether I have it in this particular one. No, I don't. I like to write where I'm targeting people in kind of in this zone, because in this zone, I'm really not in competition. But if I try to target somebody in this zone, then I'm already in competition, right? So, and the funnel is much smaller. So I really want to get them where they're problem aware. And so when I'm analyzing this, as you'll see forward, I'm trying to get people in this area. Okay. So we want to understand who we're targeting. We want to understand where in the process we want to target them. Then we want to understand what kinds of keywords will they be looking for that will drive them to our website for a conversion. And then we want to go and analyze the competition and our own site up against that framework and say, how are we doing? How are they doing? What can we learn and change so that we can do better? Does that make sense? Everybody, holler if you have questions. Feel free. Okay. All right. So as you know, we have this monster prompt database for the new guys on the call. This may look a little scary, but fortunately, whoops, wrong one. If I go into the roundtable prompts, here you see the step-by-step process that we're going to go through. Now, the reason I have it this way is because, again, I call it a scalable prompting system. I'm going to copy and paste some of these prompts, and I'm going to put somebody else in there because, you know, we work with different clients. And if you're trying to analyze your competitors, you're going to want to go in here and say, hey, here's a new guy I haven't seen before. You want to analyze them and see what's going on. Okay. So it's a 6-step process to go through this, but the intel you get along the way is really priceless. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to paste them over in here little by little, and we're going to need specific plugins to do this. Yay, though, before we start, who wants to be the guinea pig? Is there anybody out there that wants to analyze a competitor?
Morning, sir.
If anybody does, holler at me, because what I need is I need your site and I need any competitors that you have.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to play along?
I can do it. Let me look up a site. I can look at their site. Let me see if I can find their site name. I wasn't sure.
Okay.
You want to do my site? Extra
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, John, I could do yours or anybody's. Y'all just let me know who's on first. Because what I need is a website and maybe 3 competitors.
Oh, John can do it.
Yeah.
All right, John, you got them?
Yeah, I'll check. Yep, I'm here. I'll put in one execs.com. Okay, and then you want competitors.
Yeah.
Okay. For train.
Quick note out there, if it's proprietary information, ChatGPT is not secured. So whatever you put into it can be open. So if you have any private, safe harbor data that you can't get out, you do not put your name or any of that information out because it's open.
True. Yeah, what we're trying to do is just analyze based on URLs, so publicly available stuff. But
that's fine. I just want the team to know. That's awesome.
Yeah, good point. Is this them, ProChain Solutions, John?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then realization con.
Yeah, this may be tricky. Let's see.
John, I have a question. Could you let Chat GPT do this? In other words, you put in your website and go, Chat
Who are my
GPT, who are my competitors?
Sometimes it gets you close, and other times it's not so close. I've had it do it before, and I had a client tell me, okay, 4 out of 5 are not my competitors. They're actually vendors to
Okay,
me. Yeah.
you answered that.
Yeah. Okay. So, John, this could be a little complicated, John, because you're sending me to really big companies with product pages.
Oracle Primavera Cloud. There we all go down.
Where is that? Do you have a URL for it?
Yeah, Oracle Primavera Cloud.
This Zapier. Does this make sense? Or are you telling me that's the domain?
That would be our that environment, that engineering construction would be one of our direct. We would love that all their clients.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll try it. We'll see how this goes. And then this one, realization. I just need you to confirm that these are all the right ones. Is this them? Realization Technologies?
Yep, exactly.
Is this one the first one?
Yes.
Critical path. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, John has one of the more fascinating businesses out there, very complicated, works with very specific companies. So what we'll do is we will start diving in. Now, the first thing I need to do is enable specific plugins. So I'm going to I need to turn off Wolfroom first, and I'm going to turn on SEO. Okay, so I'm using primarily WebPilot and this SEO core plugin, but every now and then I'll throw in ChatSpot because sometimes it comes up with some interesting things. So that's one of the first things we want to do. All right. Now, let's see. Let's go back over here, and we're just going to go to step 1. And step 1 is where we're going to define the avatar. So I'm going to copy the prompt, and I'm going to paste it in here. And I need to go up to the top, and I need to start popping in these URLs. So there's the company. And John, what would you say your niche is?
Generically, it's high uncertainty, lots of coordinated resources across spread. But if you want a specific industry type, is that what you want?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, a specific industry would be construction would be one, would be aircraft, or would be ideal. In fact, put aircraft MRO.
Aircraft? Manufacturing?
Maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Not manufacturing? Oh, geez.
Maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Yeah.
Okay. And tell me about your target avatar. Is it a male, female, somebody in between, whatever it is? Tell me about them.
It's not gender specific at all.
Okay.
It would be a program manager of some sort, high-level executive, program executive.
Would that be like an operations person?
Yeah, these are not small. These are, think of a fleet of aircraft, somebody managing a fleet of aircraft and their maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Okay. All right, let's go with that, shall we? And so what we're going to do is we're going to have ChatGPT analyze for these things, their fears, goals, complaints, objections, solutions, mistaken beliefs, their selection process, solution process. So we're having it kind of go down a path of what do they use to try to figure out how to solve the problem? And then we're going to have it start to frame up this whole.
So John, this is Corinne. Is that based off of evaluating your website? So you're starting with the company you represent and trying to answer those? Okay.
Yeah. So what we're doing is we want to first know who we want to target before we really go in and analyze the competition, because I don't want to analyze the competition not knowing who I'm going after. Right. Otherwise, it may tell me some stuff that isn't really pertinent. So the more I know about who I'm targeting and the more I know what's going on in their minds, then the better I am analyzing how they're doing it to tell me whether or not I need to improve. And I'm going through this process.
It's an interesting exercise just to make sure that your website positioning is correct.
Yes.
You know your ideal client.
Well,
if ChatGPT agrees or not.
Right.
It also helps you validate, okay, well, my website's saying this, but I thought it was saying that.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a good way to kind of chew yourself up there.
Yeah. No, it really gets interesting because I went through this, with clients. I went through it for ourselves, and I was a little bit humbled. I was like, oh man, I need to go rebuild stuff. I know we're not going to have time today because this is a lengthy process, but let me go back to the prompt here, just make sure I don't have a refiner prompt. Okay, I don't. All right, so let's go to step 2. Step 2 is where we generate the search phrases according to the buyer's journey. So I'm just going to paste that prompt in here. And you can see I'm giving it what the buyer's journey is. By default, it has a different, more compressed 3-step buyer's journey. I want to get more specific so it knows. And then I tell it, I'm targeting somebody in the problem aware stage. Okay. But anyway, I have a prompt after this that I've been working on that'll actually turn it into a Word document with the proper formatting. But
there's a lot of subtleties going on here. I mean, you guys will notice that John didn't have to explain what those stages were. ChatGPT is going to go do the research to figure out what those actual stages are itself. He didn't have to put definitions in. It knows to take those and go look, and then once it looks, and it uses that information as a follow up, right? So
exactly,
there's a lot going on here that and if you back up at a 10,000 foot level, when you think about how long would it take you to do this using any other method to be able to figure out, what your competition's saying and how you're positioning and how to position yourself?
Yeah,
I think we all know this is, right.
Yeah. We would charge, I don't know, we would typically charge somewhere between $4,000 and $8,000 to do this for somebody, and it would take us a couple of weeks. Now, just so you know, the next step, I'm gonna have it start to take those keywords and then tell me which ones are the most important to my buyer at that stage. Okay. And I'm going to continue to refine this, and you'll see how this comes up.
Yeah, John, I like how you guys are only charging $6,000 and it takes you 2 days now. I think that's a much better improvement on margin.
Yeah. If I could charge the same amount, my problem is I don't know. I just over deliver. I'll tell somebody, we can.
Yeah, we need to chat about that. I agree with you 100%.
Right. I don't know. It's just something in me. I feel like, okay, well, I'm finished. Now I got to keep doing something, All right. So let's see. Now what we want to do is we want to refine it more. So you can see inside of our prompt database, I have a description of what it is. And then I have the stage that, this happens to be approved. It's for research. I tell you what plugins we're going to use. And then I have this follow-up prompt sometimes, which is, I know it's going to give me some results. I want it to clean it up more. And it was easier to break it into 2 prompts than to try to finesse a single prompt, because it gives you more information that way, And sometimes if you try to cram too much into a single prompt, you don't get the best results. So I'm trying to get the best results possible. All right. So now it's going to craft some SEO keywords. And for those of you who are into SEO, you'll see this is pretty cool stuff, right? These are long tail, really descriptive. And John, you're going to have to tell me whether or not this actually applies. So tell me if it's off, because I need to go in and correct it. How are you feeling about it so far?
Pretty good.
So these would be the search words that it would use, correct?
Well, this is what it's telling you your avatar would potentially be using to find you.
Yes. Yeah.
Is it nailing it?
It's pretty accurate, because these are undesirable effects that they're experiencing. This is the undesirables of what they, and then they're looking for a solution. Depends. Are they looking for a negative, undesirable effect? Positive, looking for, what are the tips, solutions, etc. Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
John, have you gone?
That's the goal. I want them here, right? I want them where they're itching, they got a problem, they got a pain, right? That's the whole idea of doing this. Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
I got a question about, have you gone back and, in your research, did you go back and actually look at these SEO terms to see where they kind of fell in the spectrum of, most used?
Yeah.
In other words, to make sure that they're valid.
Yeah. Watch me real close, because we're going to go in now to step 4.
All right,
Step 4, we're going to do
it's a good segue. I don't mind.
That's right. We're going to narrow it. Now, here's the thing. ChatGPT is not like SEMrush or any of these other tools, which actually have real-time data with, the frequency of these things are keyed in, but it's going to take a guess, right? And so we're going to refine it a little bit more. And I'm going to say, look, give me 5 to 10 keywords from the research so far that you think are the most promising in attracting our persona at the stage of the buyer's journey that we're specifically targeting, right? And the persona's primary goal, right? And so then I want it to provide detailed information such as search volume, competition, ranking, difficulty. It's going to guess because it doesn't have that. And I've been looking for a plugin that will do that. There isn't one yet, but I guarantee you somebody like SEMrush is probably going to figure out a way to do a plugin for a paid subscription to make this work. I would do it, if I had that kind of money, but I don't. All right, so let's let it rip and see what happens. And see now
John,
it's using SEO Core, the different plugin. Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say that, and there are no sources you could download like a set from and then feed it in, because that's another way to do it, right?
You could, but then what you have to do, you're limited,
right?
In terms of the paste volume. Otherwise, you have to use Code Interpreter, and you can't switch back and forth in the same session. So you either start in Code Interpreter or you start here. The problem with Code Interpreter is Code Interpreter can't search out on the web, so you have to shove everything in. So if you're trying to analyze somebody's website, you have to take a picture of it, well, not a picture, but you have to download the HTML, and then you have to upload that into Code Interpreter, and it becomes a little bit more cumbersome. And I knew, in the interest of time, we didn't want to go through that.
But I mean, technically, you could break it up into two chats, right? And you could let one get you down to the baseline, and then have a separate one that feed the data in with what you're actually going to narrow it down to. And
that was the theory that I started on too, Bob. And I started to try to figure out, how do I pull the data out of this and then shove it in there? And what you'd have to do is you'd literally have to go and copy all the responses and put it into a single document and then upload it so that it could follow the logic. So you definitely can do that. Okay, so now you can see what we've got here. It's kind of nailed what it's thinking. And so we have, of course, a refiner prompt, and I'm going to throw that in there. And I'm just going to say, all right, based on the information gathered, I want you to organize the keywords into relevant groups and then help us target. Okay, so here we go.
This is almost one of those don't try this at home kids things. There's a lot to this one.
There's a lot to it. There's a lot to it. But again, what we're trying to do is make sure that if we're really doing a competitive analysis, and we're doing, basically an online competitive analysis. I don't have the ability to go in and do, really what's their sales strategy and all that stuff. I'm taking it from an online digital marketer's perspective and saying, are we doing something or are they doing something? How can we learn from each other? And I want to know really specifically what my adjusting tactics would be. All right. So once again, we got some more refinement. All right. Looking pretty good so far. And so that brings us to step 5. And this is the beast. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to copy this one. Now I got to go throw the competitors back in here. And I'm doing that just to be safe. All right. So what I'm going to do is, hang on a second. It did not copy them. I'm going to take this and I'm going to hit the copy button and I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm going to have to scroll up to the top, and let's go back up here. Whoops, hang on a second. Take that, put it in here, and then I'm going to go grab those 3 competitors. Did I paste them in there or not? I guess I haven't done that yet. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. I'm out of sync. Okay. So I'm going to paste one of them here. And it's only going to be essentially comparing that one page, but it'll dig a little deeper if you wanted it to. All right, so now we got our 3 competitors. And just so you know what I'm asking it to do, I'm telling it to review the competitors, and I want to analyze for all these variables. And let me see if it's easier to see over here. I didn't quite bold it up so it's easier, but you can see I'm analyzing the website structure. I'm looking for usability. I'm looking at navigation, content structuring, load speed, site authority, all the usual stuff that we would want. And then on the messaging side, I'm looking for, are they using attractive headlines? Do they have a blog? What are they doing in terms of SEO? Tell me about a conversion. Do they have a lead magnet? Are they doing any kind of conversion? So I've got a whole lot of stuff I'm looking for. And I want to know if they're using Google Analytics or some kind of analytical package. All right. So I'm sure that makes so much sense. It's a lot. But here we go. Now, what it's going to have to do, obviously, it's going to have to go out and double check, John, the Exapron site. Then it's going to have to double check each competitor and do a little more research on that. So it takes a little bit of time because this is a massive deal, and it'll break it up. I'm going to probably have to tell it to continue a couple times because, there's only so much that it'll chunk out there. Y'all holler if you have any questions while we're waiting for it to do its magic. Any thoughts?
So John, Corinne here. So it's taking all of the kind of the background prep work and now applying it to this comparative analysis again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. That's what we're doing.
I mean, it
So-
has that context. You've established the
Correct.
context for the analysis.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So the great question. The whole reason it has all that is because we're staying in this same chat session, right? If I were to take any piece of this and start a new chat, it would not have all that context. So that's why I'm doing it sequentially, right? So that it continues to build on its knowledge. Now, there's a limit to it where it's going to start to forget stuff. Fortunately, at this point, it's not forgetting anything. So all of that knowledge, it's now built upon. And so now when it starts to do this, it's given me some pretty interesting stuff. All right. So there's a few things where it hasn't observed, right? So these guys have a LinkedIn profile. We'll just kind of look at what they've got so far. So now I don't know, I would agree with a lot of these things. So you would want to go and look at it if you're a web designer and say, is it really modern and clean? I don't know about these descriptors. Is it intuitive? So,
well, and John, what's the difference? I mean, it's semantics.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Please,
I would
define the difference between 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Well, because I'm dying to throw at it a really horribly designed website to see if it thinks it's lovely, So I haven't done that yet. But I have a test subject in mind. Let me just say that. Whose name will
be anonymous.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right. So SEO, you can see it's got some interesting observations here. It's talking about the products, the contact forms, the database. So all this probably would make sense to a marketer and to you, John Thompson, right? What's going on inside of this stuff? It's got reviews, etc. So here it's going to break it down a little bit more and tell you. So I'm
seeing a pretty even playing field. I mean, it's pretty homogeneous. I mean, I could take my finger and point at 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
There's
so
not a lot of
Be.
difference.
Yeah, that's a good question or a good observation, which is why I have a step 6. All right. So in the step 6, I want it to kind of pull it all together and do a little bit more. I want it to contrast everything with our company. And I want it to apply a rating scale. And then we're going to take a look at it. And then at the end, I want it to tell me what I need to do better, right? And it'll get to that point. So you see, it's got a little rating system, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 5, 3 out of 5. And again, I don't know how legitimate AI is in analyzing it the way, I potentially would, or you would, Paul,
So did you establish the rating scale or did it establish
it? It established its own. Now, you can give it the rating scale. You can tell it, here's what, a 1 actually is. For each of those variables that I had to analyze, in a more advanced thing, if we had nothing but time, I would typically in that prompt, I would say for one of the things that it's evaluating, here's what a 1 looks like, here's what a 2 looks like, and here's what a 3 looks like, and then have it try to analyze against that. I've noticed if I just tell it, look, 0 means it's not present, 1 means it's present but not that great, and 2 means it's really done well, it will change its mind. I'll run the same prompt on the same site 2 times. One times it's a 1, one times it's a 2, next time it's a 0. So, well, it's never, it has Faith, right? Didn't it go from a 0 to a 1 one time?
Yeah,
I can't remember what that was, but I think what it was I was trying to get it to analyze an H1 tag and an H2 tag and an H3 tag. And eventually, after digging, I found out that it does not read the HTML code unless you download the HTML code, throw it into Code Interpreter, and then have it do that. But anyway, so here is the final write-up. And so, John, tell me if any of this works for you. And again, this is just kind of a marketer's evaluation of a website. And we have more detailed ones that we use where we're really getting into strategy, but that takes a whole lot of picking and choosing, and it's different from every industry. But tell me what you see so far.
It's interesting. I thought we were actually behind the competitor, but we're ranking kind of along with everybody else in a way, according to the 1 to 5.
Yeah.
Scale. But I would agree. Our social media integration is poor. Absolutely. We are emphasizing the AI, BI component, and it made that recommendation. But that was like ChatGPT telling everybody, use me, I'm great.
Yeah.
Strength is number one, but yeah, exactly. But you see in the recommendation.
What about these recommendations?
Yeah.
What else do you think?
Yeah, the SEO I agree with. Social media engagement, content expansion, that's interesting. I thought that we were totally saying too much. Yeah, interesting.
Well, it's not about saying too much. It's really about casting a really wide net, right? So the more you say out there, the more you bring people in on different things.
Okay.
So
we kind of, if we were selling vacuum cleaners, we're pretty heavy on features and functionality instead of value.
Okay. Well,
and intangibles are really difficult things to sell. It's easier to sell a product than it is to sell an intangible, particularly when you're in a space where, when we do this first analysis, you could nearly, if I'm a buyer, I could take a dart on this analysis and throw it. You guys are comparable from what I'm seeing specifically in this report. I mean, what I'm saying is this is really interesting, but tough call on intangibles. So that's my only comment.
But John, you guys have a lot of outcome data, right? I mean, you've got a lot of, that's the thing, John Thomas, you guys have a lot of outcome data where, utilization of the system has produced an outcome. It is always hard to sell the software for just, especially software. It's horrible to try and sell, but you got outcomes, right?
Well, it depends who you are. On the one hand, if you're an executive, you got fiduciary, which is growth, value, response, and strategic fit, right? And risk. So that would appeal to them. On the other side, executives don't have problems, they have managers. So what are the problems that managers have? It's stress. They're all related: on-time delivery, cost, budget, no resources. So those are their stress factors. We could separate those two and ask ChatGPT to kind of sort that out, or AI to sort those two markets out.
Well, but what I'm talking about is that you have actual outcome from customers who have used it that decreased their stress because they were using the system. That's what I'm talking about, right? So when you break it out as your main subject, that's the bottom line. Is that outcomes are what people connect with, right? I mean, you can tell them everything that you can tell them your value proposition all day, but it's those outcomes that really, especially for software and things, the outcomes really sell the concept. And like you said, there are different valves in the sales process, depending on whether you're talking to an executive or you're talking to an actual execution person like a director or whatever. And yes, you should definitely craft content that addresses both of those as individuals, right, inside of the scope of what your strategy is. But I mean, if you guys didn't have a whole lot of positive outcomes that you could talk about, it would be a lot harder, but you really do. I think you guys, knowing you personally, and I've known you for years, right? You have a hard time talking about how good your stuff really is and putting it into context.
You hit it. I mean, this is a really great point because it's all about story, right?
Right.
How can you differentiate yourself? And it really comes down to your story and storytelling, and telling that story to the prospects so that they can see themselves as winning in the end result of your story that you've woven, because the rest of this stuff is really, it's words. I'm saying all words here, but if you can tell the story and some case use and you have the receipts, here are my proofs, as Bob brings up, I think that would be a lot more powerful than anything I'm seeing in this analysis in front of me.
But I think this analysis tells you where to focus those stories. So in my mind, it's like, okay, he's telling you what it's telling you is all of that research. Here are the things that in general are important, but then you got to craft the stories that fit inside of these zones right here, because then you're getting a multiple on the impact, right? Because you're taking what the universe thinks you should be doing from a statistical analysis standpoint, which is all these large language models do, right? They're just really sophisticated statistical analysis kind of devices, and they use language to communicate that. But then you put that in the context of good old storytelling, which is the basis of really sales in general, and you use those together, then you're going to get a multiple above what you would do if you did either one of those independent of one another without chaining them together, right?
Well, but Paul, you mentioned intangibles. This goes back, at least in the ERP side, to the old case studies, which is, we reduced our inventory carrying costs by 11%. Our cash to cash cycle increased, dropped 7 days. So you're putting the tangible reduced by cost to process an order by $7.18. So you can turn, we've always had difficulties, but the case studies, when you can give hard facts.
That's the receipts. Give them the receipts.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's try this.
Numbers are 80% more effective than just words, right? I mean, numbers that have basis in fact. Yes.
All right, so let's try this just for giggles and see if it'll wrap it up in a nice, neat package for you. So your buyer's persona, their name is Alex Turner. There you go, John.
Pretty specific.
Yeah.
That's in Wrench Turner.
Well, there you go, man. Like we knew what we were talking about. Look at that.
Oh, exactly.
So we just all theorized, and then it just validated exactly what we were just saying.
Was it listening, Bob? It might have been listening.
Well, you know what it does, but I mean, this is one of those little learning moments, right? So we talk logically like people who understand, kind of what we're trying to do, and we let an artificial intelligence with all of its statistical knowledge at it, and it came to the same damn conclusion, plus or minus 5%, whatever, right? So
this is wonderful. This is our validation.
Exactly.
It
tells us we're pretty smart, but it says this thing's a pretty useful tool as well, right? I mean, that's the point.
I'll say.
Not bad for 20 minutes, right?
Wow.
That's stunning. Yeah. You want to talk about an outcome story? We just showed you one, right? I mean, here's an outcome.
Here you go. Here's your USP it's coming up with. It's kind of interesting.
Whoa.
Obviously, you can get it to finesse.
Yeah. Those are words, but they're good words.
Mm-hmm.
That's like, how do you pack the maximum number of words that get, cause a strike effect, right? I mean, that's what those are, right? They're pulling on every nerve out there. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And of course, you can throw in style parameters and try to word it differently and all that stuff. But the bottom line is this gives you a really solid starting point, and the thing I like about it, like if you had an agency, John, that you're working with and you're thinking about doing something new, you would basically provide them with this and say, okay, I want you to pay attention to this now as our strategy, right? I want topics around that. And literally inside of this, I could create lots of ideas. We have actually prompts in there for generating ideas.
Wow. There you go. Story ideas. There it is, Paul.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just handed it to you.
And it's selling itself. I see that sneaky, clever thing. The future is now how predictive AI is. It made a number of plugs to itself. I love it. It's smart.
Yeah.
It said, hey, I'm really smart, but Exopron's a cousin of mine. You should really listen to it too.
Exactly.
Yeah, John, this really does point it in the right direction. It gives you a lot of content, a lot of ideas. It just frustrates me that I can't execute them all.
Well, you got to.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
You got to have topics this year, next year, and the year after. So
yeah. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious if anybody else on the call here finds this useful. You see how you could potentially use it in your organization,
Hey, let's make it quicker. Raise your hand if you don't think you could use this, because that's going to be a lot shorter list.
Well, Corinne, I know you act as a fractional CMO. Do you think your clients could be using something like this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think this last portion obviously is kind of the money, if you will. On the competitive comparison charts, I'm not sure I saw a lot of, tangible. I saw a lot of kind of sameness across the board, which made me feel, might make me feel good if I was behind or, up above where you had the tables. But I didn't see anything or John's website is more in tune with the competition than expected but everybody is kind of in that 3.5 to 4 range on almost all of the ratings there. So I am curious about the SEO terms though, that it's recommending, because I think that that's obviously something very tangible that you could use pretty quickly as well.
Let me do one other thing while I'm looking at this.
Yeah, my takeaways are exactly the same. In terms of SEO search, one thing that is missing is possible tags. What you use, that would be another enhancement of what the analysis is giving. But then the SEO term search words, great. Then the tags, you could ask it to give us some tags. And then secondly, the third person or the third part is the persona and some of the suggestions on storyline.
Yeah, no, I love the storylines. I like the confirmation of your avatar. Is your website addressing who you think it's addressing? Is it addressing their needs? Especially when a website has been up, for a couple of years and hasn't had a major update or rewrite to it, I find that things get kind of mushy, if you will. They're not as crisp as when you first launch, and you've got a really sharp focus on the ideal client profiles. But I love the suggested content, the, kind of the specific kind of headline themes, not just do blog posts on this topic.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I could stack on here. Give me a second, since we have 6 minutes left. Let me go and find it. I don't want to bore you by flipping through too many screens here. But
John, you have just done in less than an hour what would have taken weeks of effort to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There would have been bias introduced in it because it would have been done by, human resources.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. True. I'm thinking though.
I do buy into Bob Miller's, but it's like just a statistical central, you're centralizing all the information center around the mean. That's really what it's doing. It's collating and saying this is what the mean is, or the mean average, or what everybody else is talking about. You have to keep that in mind. If you're looking for an outlier or a breakthrough, I don't think you're going to find it with AI. It would be outside of the thought pattern of where it is, because it's centralizing everything. But that's a whole different debate, though.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the flexibility, though, John. You can actually tell it, hey, I want you to go way far left and way far right, and give me ideas, right? You can do that as well. Since it knows it's mean, it knows that there's a left and a right, and it can go out to the edges of that too.
Yeah.
So
I thought the story ideas were very clever, and that's outside that you won't find, because what I'm thinking about is that everybody on their websites has copied each other, in the sense that everybody knows what the other guy's website looks like. And after, especially over time, they start to kind of meld together. But the story ideas that came up at the end, I thought were pretty brilliant, especially for the speed it came up with, which is different. And that's not what they would find. You can't get that looking at the websites. You wouldn't come up with those unless you spent a lot of time thinking about it and you had your own case histories and everything. I thought that part was brilliant. I thought the last part had a lot of value. It was very clever.
There's another point to this, and that is my writing tends to be very technical, reference, and the storyline is collating it as an Irish, in an Irish pub, you'd hear the story that would capture you. You need to be able to write it in a way that it captures the audience as almost like a novel would, rather than as a technical writing.
Yep. But I'll tell you, John, we use this because for our business, we build service descriptions, which are very technical documents about what it is we do. Then we feed that into ChatGPT and say, hey, write me on a 5th grade level, a non-technical article that takes all this into account and explains what we're doing. And it gives you a really, again, you just got to think of it in terms of a Swiss Army knife in that case. It can help you get that much closer to being more consumable by non-technical entities on the backside. So you can use it for that as well.
One last table I thought I'd throw at you. I asked it to contrast Exapron against the competitors using the buyer personas, pains, frustrations, needs, desired outcomes, and buying decisions. And now it's got even more interesting.
John, to your point,
John,
to your point, I remember, I think it was when the first HP scientific calculator came out, all the engineers loved it, but they weren't selling anything. Well, they figured out I can't sell it to the engineers. I'm selling it to the buyers at the plants, right? So they had to redo their entire marketing to say, we know who's going to use it, but those aren't the people that actually buy it.
Yeah. To Asim's question on there, yes, it all depends on, what's present on the website. Like I did one yesterday on a client of ours, and it was way more potent than what I'm seeing here. So this was frankly a little bit on the disappointing side. However impressive it may have been, I evaluated some other, it depends on what market you're in, right?
Right.
John's in a complicated market, right? If you're in a different market, it'll give you some really interesting things. Like if you're trying to compare, like if you were an agency, an ad agency, and you're contrasting yours against somebody else, it would crush it. If you were you pick another industry, everything really depends on the data that you give it, and the data that you're giving it is somebody else's website against yours, right? So,
yeah, but John, I would point out that, look, you got to think about this again statistically. John has got the enterprises that he's competing against are like 1% of the businesses out there. Therefore, all the content related to that is a much smaller subset of, say, ad agencies, which are 40% or whatever the information is out there. So the bigger the sample set of information produced by those entities, the more knowledge that the language machine is going to have, because there's just more content there to consume and to build references from. So if you are an edge organization or an edge technology, you're going to get less out of this than you are something more toward the mainstream from an industry standpoint. So you got to know that going in.
Yeah.
If you're talking about albatrosses, you ain't going to get too much on albatrosses, but you'll get a whole lot on Labradors. You know what I mean?
Well, like if we were going to compare MSPs, Bob, you'd have a whole different outcome here, and it would be really interesting.
Yeah, because there's 30,000 of those in the United States, right? So the content that's produced by them has been learned, and you can draw from that. Exactly.
Yeah. No, a lot of like if I was analyzing an MSP, or if I were analyzing an internet service provider or a data center, since I'm B2B, I'm speaking B2B, I'd have a whole lot of stuff. I could do restaurants, barbecue restaurants. I could do gift stores. There's a lot of them. And it's like you pointed out, the more it has out there to analyze, the better this thing turns out. Well, we're over time, guys.
And if you scroll down a minute, I want to point out something down somewhere on the testimonial and review. We high on testimonial and review, but it's in PDF form. It can't read it.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. It tells me.
Yeah.
We've had it before that we need to turn those into, machine readable
little boxes. Yeah.
They're searchable. Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, another day in the record books. So appreciate you all coming. And, I know I haven't next week. Let me see. I'm just real quick. I'll show you. Next week is the AI note taker wars. All right. We talked about that. We went over that. I'm going to do some other stuff too, but we've compared 5 of them. We've done all kind of analytics on them. I can tell you if there's a clear winner or not. There are a couple of them in here right now. I see Fireflies is present. That's one of the ones we analyzed. We're using Fathom. There's a bunch of them. So that'll be an interesting one. And we'll see how that one goes as well. And then I may even show you what we do with all of that stuff. So that's kind of fun. All right, everybody. Thank you for your support. Anyone have another question before we bolt?
Yeah, John, one question. Could you kindly make that transcript, copy it to me if you.
John would like to get that content.
Yep, I'll send it to you, John. No problem.
John would like to cut 6 weeks off his process. John, could you actually send him a link to that chat? That would be great.
That's right.
Fair enough.
I charge $1,000 a minute, John, so it won't be much. All right, y'all take care. I'm out of